I started to become more interested in tasks, right? And then read Mike Long's book of second language acquisition and task-based language teaching, which is absolutely wonderful, right? And I was, this is what makes sense. And I don't know what, maybe I had something that I cannot teach otherwise. I cannot, now that I know this, right? And I fully understand it, there's no way for me to do other things that just, if I want to have a communicative class, it's gotta be task-based. There's no other way. I cannot do it otherwise. So I started with a class in Knox College, piloting how can I do tasks in my class. And I thought that it was very successful. It was amazing. With the other context from UIC. So I already knew that when I come to UIC, right, I'm going to do a task-based curriculum. There's no other way. And I don't know.
What were some of the key points there in the pilot that made you believe that it was actually successful? The educators there?
Yes. So what happened was that at Knox, we had 2 tracks for students or for learners to achieve the language requirement, which was 1 year, right? It was an intensive 2 semester or 2 terms, I think, sequence, right? And one that it was less intensive was 3 terms in the year, right? At the end of the 3rd term, you finish with your language requirement. So I said, I want to take these 3 terms of language learning, right? And I want to do it task-based because it was very difficult to convince as usually happens, my colleagues into changing the ways they were changing. It was a grammar curriculum what we had. So they didn't want to do it. So let me do it this way myself for 1 year, 1 school year, and let me see how it goes. And when I was in Knox College, one of the things that I had to do was to direct language program in Barcelona, Spain, for a year. And in that year, I discovered a textbook. That caught my attention because at the beginning of each chapter, the textbook would say, in this unit, we are going to write a recipe. Or in this unit, we are going to, I don't know, give a presentation about the future of the world. I don't know, something like, so this looks like tasks, right? So I said, I think this textbook could facilitate the creating a curriculum 1 year based on tasks. So I use this textbook as a tool to facilitate my vision of what I wanted, right? I didn't know much about needs analysis or things that you are supposed to be doing when you create a curriculum or a course based on tasks. But I knew that the tasks were more or less interesting for my students. So I did that, was very rigorous of the task of the textbook is going to guide everything, right? So I have 6 tasks or 5 tasks or whatever. I have identified them very well. And I told my students what was the plan. And it was, of course, these students were quite different from my students here at UIC. These students were living in the campus and they were very much into studying and not have very complex lives like the ones that my students here at Chicago have, because they are just, or it's a European university and they are not that the other students, they have complex lives, but you know what I mean? It was more into this smallish campus, and they were and one thing to say, they had much more time and to be engaged with the class. And what happened is that at the end of these, so we started with very basic Spanish. They didn't know anything much. And at the end by May, right, they were able to understand very well and say things that for me were like mind-blowing. 2 students really were, I think, at the intermediate mid-levels. They were speaking it at the level of this course. It's advanced, but you know what I'm like starting to do. So I said, wow, this is pretty amazing. Of course, I'm saying that I knew very well how to do it. I had all the experience already accumulated to do a good job. And the students were good students to do that. So, of course, everything was into place for it to work, right? So it's not that. So that was for me, this is what I want to do, right? This is really helping students to advance in their proficiency and to do things. It was very satisfying for them to say, I can do this, right? I actually can do this, right?
From, you said beginner, let's say in September, to
May.
Benchmark it May, intermediate level.
I would say 2 of them were absolutely, those 2 students were, I had like maybe 15. All of them were very good. I'm telling you, it was not that. But I was amazed that two of them that didn't know anything. Then suddenly with the same, it was
because
amazing.
flashy signs in our industry, right? Learn Spanish, learn English in time frame, which what does learn mean? What does quantify? But in this case, it sounds beginner to intermediate in 8 months, right?
In 9 months. But of course, this is that nobody wanted very much. Not that nobody wanted, but it was a very heavy course to give because you teach every day hour, and university professors are not very used to teach every day, to tell you the truth. So it was an intensive thing, I have to say.
Did they have outside of the course? Because living in Illinois, Spanish is somewhat common in the U.S., of course, but
not in Knox College necessarily. Okay. Students were living in the dorms, so it was more like a bubble, right?
It's even more impressive, actually. Then.
Yeah. So it was. I was impressed too. It was quite. So I knew that what happens is that it's not that you are completely blind to task-based language teaching and you think that it is a panacea. And it's just that it aligns very well with what we know about language acquisition. I'm maybe not perfectly. I mean, I don't know. There are so many things that we need to learn about TBLT still that we have not resolved.
Yeah.
But at least it doesn't go up. It doesn't work against it. Yeah. It works it's aligned, and that's what is. Yeah. It has more potential to work.
That's exactly what I was going to say to you. It seems, Claudia, like even for me, like I'm currently teaching at a college where the curriculum is driven by grammar points, and very much like what you said, I refuse to go back to teaching the way I used to teach, and I'm just looking at the grammar points, and I'm like, let me see if I can think of tasks that would naturally out the emergence of these grammar points during the task, which again, as you said, what makes task-based language teaching perhaps, I wouldn't say the approach to language education, but it makes it the more learner-friendly approach based on what we know about how people learn languages.
I'm here with John from My Speaking Score. And John, I think we agree that as entrepreneurs, one of the toughest things for us is to describe and articulate our business, what we do, why we do it, why we love it, who it helps, what problem it solves, in a super short, crystal clear way that's clear to the audience. So why don't you give us your 20-second pitch of who you help at My Speaking Score?
It's a great question. My Speaking Score is an AI-powered platform that predicts TOEFL speaking scores and gives our users feedback on how specifically to improve their TOEFL speaking performance so they can get a high score on test day.
Incredible. So if you're listening to this, you're a teacher, you help students with TOEFL, help them get their speaking score on TOEFL. Check out myspeakingscore.com. John would love to chat with you about how you can work together to help your students pass their speaking score on the TOEFL test. John, thank you for this.
Thanks, Andrew.
And you've said that it is possible to create a program that is 100% communicative and 100% task-based. So I think my question to you, and I think a lot of people who are considering approaching curriculum design, course design, or even institutions, what are some of the key decisions or some of the key decisions that you've had to make in order to make sure that the curriculum stayed truly communicative and task-based? What kinds of things did you have to let go of to make that happen?
When I started with UIC, when I started, it's just for your audience to know, to understand the context. When I started at UIC, the position was not the director of the program. They were looking for a director of the program. And the position was not given to someone internal, someone external. So the program, as it is now, as it was before, was comprised of 1,000 students as per semester. So it's a pretty big program. And the requirement is 4 semesters of or the equivalent. You don't have to study 4 semesters. Students take the placement test, and whatever is the placement, they can take 3 semesters, 2 semesters of only 1 semester, depending on the placement. It has to be the equivalent of 4 semesters. So that is the program. And since Spanish is very popular in the US, well, many people study Spanish, and that's why the program is so big. And it needs a director that makes the curriculum possible and the language requirement possible for students to fulfill. So there was someone, my very dear colleague, Lisa Aguilar, who was like the interim director while this position was filled. Okay, so when I arrived, so that is one of the factors that contributed for me to change the program so drastically. The program had a very grammar-based curriculum. with typical like composiciones or compositions and things like that, oral exams at the end. So there it was very typical, right? And I say I'm not going to do that. But I didn't want. I knew there is a book that Gillian Lord wrote about directing language programs. I absorbed that book. I read it from the beginning to the end. That gives you tips how to direct a language program. And one of the things where we need to create a mission of the program, right? And you need to make the program. One of the things that for the program to work is that you cannot just go and impose things. I think leadership 101, that is the thing. So what happens is that I knew that it had TAs, maybe 15, 20 TAs, and I don't know, another 10 lecturers, which were professors, instructors that were having a lot of experience teaching. And so I took advantage of the fact that I was new and that people want for me to like them, right? So they expected the new person to come and make changes, right? So, but I knew that I had a window of opportunity there. After 1 year, I knew that any change might be a little bit more difficult. It has to be now. So I was over the summer when I got the position, I was thinking, how can I change the things into task-based? So what I did was that I learned about the program the first semester, and learned to get to know everyone, and everything. Ask a lot of questions to Liz and everything. And then the second semester of the year, of that first year of that I had, I created 5 workshops of 2 hours each for everyone, for all the teachers and instructors in the program. And the purpose of these workshops were to identify the new mission of the program, or an ideal thing that every one of us wanted for the program to be, right? Because a mission is usually an ideal thing that we all want to achieve or to look up to, right? And that was the task. The task was at the end of this, that was the mission. But these workshops served for me to start talking about task-based language teaching, and to the extent in which this framework of this approach would be beneficial to our students based on the knowledge that you guys know more about the students than myself, right? I was a student at UIC, but it's not the same. It was 20 years ago. So based on the profile of the students that we know, and because everyone has the same goal, we want students, of course, to become proficient. That is the main goal. So based on the common goal, so I started trying to sell the idea of task-based, and I think I gave the idea that I know what I was talking about, right? So they say, after 10 years of being with this same textbook and grammar, maybe this is like a refresh. So they were tired too, the lecturers, right? They were tired. I was new. I was injecting some energy. They were taking into consideration their opinions. We were going something interesting, a mission. So everything like was into place for me I have a plan in my head, of course, right? But I wanted to feel that it was everyone's work idea. And of course, their input was helpful for me too. So that was one of the things. People usually ask me the same thing. How people agreed to your plan? So that was these factors that not everyone is in the position to have, but that I have to say that contributed to my idea. So by the end of that year, we already know that it was going to be a change in task-based was to be the framework. They knew more or less how to go about it. And then I looked for the materials. The textbook that I found in Barcelona was something that would facilitate the things. And then a lot of work from my part on identifying the tasks that we wanted to do. And then because I didn't want for them to be difficult to implement, right? I want them to say, this is the task. This is how you're going to implement the task. This is the nature of the task. This is the rubric. This is the evaluation criteria that you're going to use to evaluate the task. And you have 5 days to prepare the students for this final task. And this textbook has some pedagogic tasks that you might want to identify and are going to help you for the students to accomplish the task in 5 days or on 2 weeks. So I didn't want them to feel like, now what I'm going to do, I don't know how to go about it. This is just a mess. I'm going to say that there was not messy moments in the transition. Of course, not everything was perfect. I had to do things for that. I thought that if we had, for example, exams, like proficiency exams, along with the task, but it was going to be a good idea, and it was not a good idea. So I removed the proficiency exams, and I just left the tasks to be the
I've
assessment.
learned my lesson the hard way with that too.
Right. Yes, exactly. I'm not saying that it was a smooth transition,
Right.
but I have to say that if you have a clear vision of what you want and several factors get into place for it to be put into implementation, then that was my situation.
I feel like, Claudia, most people we have on here, like yourself, who describe these really successful initiatives of disrupting a curriculum and a program with the task-based, why does it still why can't we have people come on and say, this is the norm now, and the way that we currently do it is the opposite? Why does it have to be such a Herculean? What you're describing sounds amazing, but it sounds like you're upheaving everything and implementing. And you keep saying for 20 years, why 2025 is it still such a Herculean effort to get? Why does it take someone amazing like you to do all the work and just give it to people? Why can't what you've described be the standard?
Easier. Exactly. I found only one book, a textbook, and I could have done my own activities. I was going to do that. I was, you know what, if I have to create my own tasks, my own materials and everything, I will do it. But I found this only textbook that is not ideal. It doesn't even call it a task-based. It was just the way the textbook was that facilitated. Well, only one. There's only among the dozens of books that they are. So I guess many people have answered the same way as I'm going to answer that now. It has been difficult and is becoming difficult, and maybe it will be difficult until one day I hope it is not anymore. For many, it is, for some reason, there's something about tasks that it is not very well understood. I don't know what I say. Maybe it's unfamiliar. Maybe it is. I'm talking about the context of Spanish in the U.S., which is the one that I know, but it might be the same for English or for other languages in the world. So this is one, people do not know very well what is a task. People do not know, and if they know, they don't know how it's possible to implement it in the classroom without giving a list of vocabulary items before. I mean, I'm telling you because it's what people ask me every time that I give a presentation about tasks and tasks. Say how, so they have not tried it. You know what I mean? They have not have or maybe they don't have the opportunity to try it and to see how it goes. And then many people also are working already with syllabus or with curricula that are grammar oriented. So there is one of the questions is, how can I put my tasks into this curriculum that it has the future and the present tense and it is incompatible in a way because they have told me I feel guilty that I am not teaching for the future and the students are just speaking with no plan in hand, right? Plan, as I say, without learning. Well, I learned the subjunctive or I learned the future. We are just finding if we like flowers or not, something like that. So what is the task today? The task today is to find out who is the healthiest people in the class or something. That is more of communicative goal. So this is one of the things. The other thing is that the profession, and that unfortunately the profession still lacks a lot of training and understanding. And the textbooks, I have to go to textbook because people usually, me included, I use textbooks to facilitate or to make your job easier. How can I say it? I want to say it diplomatically. Textbooks offer something that the profession has accepted because they don't understand how language learning goes. So they have profited, unfortunately, and I don't want to sound blunt, but it is, I think, they have profited on our ignorance. And I heard one of your podcasts that we're talking about headway, one of the textbooks. I think every language has its headway. So in a way, textbooks pull the profession back. But also when you tell the authors, the textbook I have, why do you? And they tell me something that is very true. The teachers want this. So it is like a vicious cycle, right? And we have not figured out how to get out of this cycle.
On that point, I'm curious about this because I think you're right. I agree with you that the teachers want this, teachers want this, teachers maybe feel they should teach this future perfect, continuous, whatever it is, right? But universities are businesses, right?
Oh.
Schools are businesses.
Even the
business
even,
is tough right now. And every other industry in the world, most of them, good ones, focus on serving your clients first. And students are clients. Adult students are clients. And you gave a really good example earlier of this task-based curriculum course that you implemented 9 months later. The students got, I'm sure, exceeded their expectations. So if there's this thing that exists that exceeds client expectations and a business is not implementing it, what's going on?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's a complex. I think that at the university level, at least, there are several factors. It's an answer that what I'm gonna say is going to be incomplete and maybe wrong. But my point of view is that from someone that works in the university level is that there are several things. Yes, it's true that even public universities, they have to make profit and they live out of the tuition in many ways of the students. But the thing is that in higher education, it is the job of the professor is very well respected in the sense that nobody can tell me what I what I do in my class, right? Nobody, the deans or anything. If I have my syllabus has to be respected, right? Nobody can tell me your syllabus is wrong, right? So this is something that goes against maybe faculty governance. I don't know. The professor is the master in the classroom, and I agree with this. He is the expert, right? Nobody's going to mess with my. So if the curriculum based on grammar is the curriculum that this expert feels that it is okay, it should be okay. The university cannot tell me what I should do. That is one thing. The other thing is that it is maybe the students nowadays are more aware, or maybe not. The students usually expect that in a language class, in a Spanish class, you learn grammar and you need to know what the future is. It is normal. It is what it is, right? Because my students sometimes tell me why I don't think that I have understood, have learned anything. And they have, you can't really give a presentation on the best neighborhood in Chicago. Yeah, but they cannot write. They say, yeah, I can do it in Spanish, but I don't know the conjugations still. It is normal that for adults you want to say, what is it that I have that I know? But with language, you will never know that. You will never know what you know. That is fit for the language. But adults want to know. It is normal that I don't. So if you say we're going to learn the future and you're going to see how it works, it is very satisfying. So why what is wrong to learn the future, how the future works in Spanish, right? There is nothing wrong about it, right? So that is another way of thinking of this. And it is easier for students sometimes to just fill in the blanks in the exams and have an A, right? Than to become creative and to be in front of the class speaking in Spanish. Who wants to do that? Many students feel uncomfortable with the situation. And then the other thing is that, to tell you the truth, I think that many universities do not care much about language learning. So whatever goes, they are not going to. It is what I see, right? It go maybe in the last century, at the beginning of the 1900s, maybe it was something big, studying German or something. But nowadays, other majors have more prevalence, and people are trying to reduce the language requirement. Universities are closing languages programs, so it is not that really people have these factors are into place that do not help the profession.
Yeah, it's definitely taking a back seat in the sense that we are downplaying the beauty, perhaps, of learning a language, and learning a language like you learn within a TBLT framework.